This is a splinter that I excised from my brother's eye. It is very small. I don't know if you can see it. He has an obnoxious, angry personality and severely needed to be chastised. I was there to do him that service. I honestly had trouble seeing his splinter since my eyesight is poor due to this log that I found in my eye. Very difficult to see with this. Okay, this is a dramatization of today's gospel passage when Jesus says, "Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own? You hypocrite." The answer to Jesus' question is difficult. Self-evaluation is not easy. Our society is renowned for being litigious. It is always trying to blame someone else for its problems rather than looking within ourselves. In its extreme form, blaming others for our suffering can lead to expressions of angry, moral relativism. That is, applying different standards to others than to ourselves. Public examples include the recently defeated legislation against infanticide, mass murders by terrorists, or condemnation of specific politicians as intrinsically evil. But all of these public expressions of outrageous anger distract us from the personal obligation we have that Jesus challenged us to address, to look within ourselves. Clearly, the devil exists, but sometimes it seems that we place so much emphasis on him, we start to externalize evil and blame others. Thus, we can fall into the same trap that our society now experiences. It can lead to an unwillingness to look for the devil within us. Mark's gospel captured this best when he said, "Evils come from within, and they defile." If we have a tendency to preferentially blame others for our suffering feelings, it begs the question, why do we suffer in the first place? Perhaps a simple parable story will help. There were 5 world-renowned genetic scientists that believed technology had come so far as to improve nature to an unimaginable extent. They believed they could demonstrate this by producing the most beautiful and largest butterfly ever. After 7 years of research, the butterfly they created was ready to emerge from its cocoon. It struggled mightily, and after hours, one wing emerged. The struggle, however, was taking its toll. As it tried to free its other wing, it became more and more exhausted, appearing to possibly succumb to its efforts. The scientists were very distraught. After several more hours, the lead scientist could not stand to watch it anymore. She decided to help by making a small incision with her scalpel to allow the second wing to come free. After a couple of more attempts, the butterfly emerged, triumphant, and fluttered to the table below. It was indeed the most beautiful butterfly that ever existed. It was both very large and colored in great splendor, more than flower or rainbow. The scientists were ecstatic, shouting with joy at their accomplishment. But after a short time, they began to realize that the butterfly, in spite of its size and beauty, was not able to fly. Lying there, motionless in its splendor, silence descended on the group. They had seemingly succeeded in their endeavor, but what good is a butterfly that can't fly? In their zeal to help, they did not recognize a fundamental truth. The struggle the butterfly had to undergo to extricate itself from its cocoon was the very thing that stimulated its metabolism in order for it to survive and live a full and productive life. Aren't we that butterfly in God's eyes? The Holy Spirit, being ever present within us, does not want us to suffer. Instead, the Spirit withholds his immediate help for the greater good of our soul. For those who have experienced great suffering, this may seem cruel and contradictory, but only if we forget that God's personal willingness to demonstrate this through his own death on the cross. He showed us the salvific value of suffering to enable us to choose to self-evaluate and look within and surrender to his ultimate love for our survival, rather than to choose to harbor anger toward others whom we may perceive as causing our suffering. But how will we know we have been honest in our self-evaluation without the extremes of rationalized righteousness or excessive guilt? How do we know we may deserve Jesus' admonishment when he said in today's gospel, "You hypocrite"? French writer and moralist Francois de la Rochefoucauld once said, "Hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue." In other words, if we are hypocrites, are we by our very hypocrisy admitting in the depths of our heart that there is a right and a wrong and that we are doing the wrong thing? Today's readings offer some guidance in answering that question. The first reading gives advice to not launch into verbal anger when it says, "The fruit of a tree shows the care it has had. So too does one's speech disclose the bent of one's mind." We need to listen, not speak. That is why God gave us redundancy in 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. The second reading gives encouragement when it says, "Be firm, steadfast, always fully devoted to the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain."